My name is Alan Wake, and I'm a writer.
I left off in my Alan Wake adventure at the end of episode 3. It was a long trek to the top of Mirror Peak, without much of a payoff. As episode 4 opens, things take a little bit of a turn.
I felt groggy. Whatever Hartman had bumped in me was making me numb.
Alan wakes in the Crater Lake Lodge with Dr. Emil Hartman, who tries to convince Alan, and the player, that everything up to this point has been imagined, and Alan is really experiencing a psychotic break. This is a familiar beat, and the story seems a little half-hearted given the game is brief in its commitment to it. Before long, Alan has recovered his wits and is trying to escape. In doing so, you can uncover some additional information about the relationship between Dr. Hartman and Alice, as well as the reason for your trip to this particular area, which is the cause of the fight between Alan and Alice at the start of the game. It's elements like this that have added the most to the story for me, and helped keep me engaged. It was also in episode 4 that I started to read the manuscripts as I was playing. I'd not collected them after episode 3 when I tried the game a long time ago, so from this point on, I could read them in order of collection, since any new pages showed up as unread. The manuscripts did add to the experience. When events you've read about start coming true, it's a neat effect. The manuscripts aren't exactly in order. Sometimes they fill in detail parallel to Alan's current events, as well as the past and future. For their relevance to the story, these felt like the real rewards for the modest bit of exploration the game provides, more so than extra ammo, or certainly the non-functional collectibles. Episode 4 closes on what it seems to deem a substantial narrative revelation about Alan's lost week. But like the episodes before, nothing here seems particularly new, since the game has been hinting at these events already. The remaining episodes of the game follow very much the same pattern. I still found there to be too much combat and little variation. Some chase and driving sequences serve to break up the gameplay a bit throughout episodes 5 and 6. But these haven't aged particularly well and can be awkward. Driving does provide respite from on-foot combat. Plowing through Taken with your car is a welcome optimization when available, but not particularly engaging. I was playing for the story, and despite the game not being long, I think the time between story moments lengthened, and the game dragged a little bit. I would have enjoyed more of the narrative to discover in the world itself. Ending wraps up the core thread that's been carrying Alan through the adventure, and starts another in the process. Alan completes his manuscript, rescuing Alice, but trapping himself. Other big questions remain unanswered, and new ones posed with little context. Agent Nightingale remains a confusing element. He disappears as abruptly as he appeared. Nightingale seems to discover the events of the manuscript only once he's captured Alan. So why is he after him in the first place? Nightingale is quite literally a plot element Alan has written, so the why maybe doesn't matter as much as the purpose he serves, with Sheriff Breaker and elsewhere in the plot. Dr. Hartman's connection to the Dark Presence is unclear, but he and Mott are aware of its existence, and Hartman was involved with Zane. The origin of the Dark Presence is a mystery. It's mentioned to have been slumbering when it finds Zane, or Zane finds it, so seems to predate him. The power of the lake to make stories come true appears distinct from the presence itself. Perhaps the presence is an older creation of someone else's, prior to Zane. Then we have Mr. Scratch. Revealed only in the ending, Scratch is an apparent doppelganger of Alan's. Mirrorverse kind of stuff. And that's about the only thing we hear. The insinuation seems to be that, with Alan trapped, this alter ego may still be present in the world to threaten those he cares about, or at least take his place. Thinking about these questions is fun, and I found myself looking back over the cinematics, manuscripts, and radio shows to glean any bit of additional detail I might have missed. Sadly, there wasn't too much to find, but I was clearly invested at some level, and I found myself curious about where the story would go in the special episodes, American Nightmare, and now, 13 years later, Alan Wake 2. Like Alan says in the opening cinematic, if everything is explained, the allure and illusion of the story is broken. True enough, to some extent, But I think it's also true that stories are better for it when authors have a clear idea in mind, even if that idea isn't described explicitly. From here, let me take a quick detour into the 2 special episodes for Alan Wake that follow the main game, The Signal and The Writer. I gather these were DLC, maybe free for those that had purchased the game, released sometime afterward. Given all the questions still on my mind, I was excited to jump in and see where the story went. Unfortunately, I found these special episodes lacking what I was hoping for. Instead of additional story and character details, or a continuation of the timeline, I was faced with a substantial amount of combat that seemed to turn things up a notch, even on easy. The conceit of Alan being trapped in the dark place and needing to escape his own nightmare led to reuse of areas with some remixed details, and far too much spawning of multiple enemies in mid-swing directly behind or beside me. There were a couple environmental combat elements, one in each of the episodes, that were a little bit different. In the second special, The Writer, Mr. Scratch is mentioned and confirmed to be the worst part of Alan, but that's about all we get. It's been an especially fun time to revisit Alan Wake recently. When a new game in a series comes out, it's often a great opportunity for me to get around to previous entries I simply haven't had time for, while still tapping into some of the zeitgeist of the new release. I very much hope Alan Wake 2 will be a significant departure from the first game in some ways. Unlike the special episodes, it's sure to more significantly continue the story I'm interested in following, but I hope they lean into the survival horror aspects of the game and bring something new to the table as far as exploration and combat. From the little I've seen of the new plot, it seems the cycle may repeat itself, and a new visitor to Bright Falls may take on the role Alan played in this game, while Alan is now the trapped writer and source of knowledge only tenuously linked to the real world, like Thomas Zane. The game sounds like it's been very well received, which is exciting, and I will be checking it out, after I check out Control. Like Control, it also sounds like it'll be a fantastic high-end experience to try on a new computer, which is part of what started me off on this adventure, an adventure that is quickly turning into a pretty full exploration of Remedy's game library. Before all that, what about American Nightmare? The little that I've read indicates it's fairly, if not completely, detached from the narrative of the main game, and more focused on combat. If that's the case, I'm glad to know that going in after the disappointment of the special episodes. I'm not sure I'll have a great deal to say about the game, but I always enjoy trying things for myself, so I'm going to do that, even if Control is really the next main thing on my list. Remedy has turned out to be a pretty unique developer. I've only played Alan Wake so far, but I enjoyed many things about it, and it wasn't a terribly long experience. I think their other games are similar in scope, so I might actually have a chance of catching up on them, from Max Payne through Alan Wake 2. But I'll be focusing on the core games first, and probably some other unrelated things along the way. As always, thank you so much for checking out the video. I hope you enjoyed it. Please say hello down in the comments if you'd like to talk about games. And until next time, take care.